All right, well, this morning, officials are investigating yet another mysterious object discovered floating over North America on Sunday, making it the fourth shot down in just 8 days.
Yeah, this latest object was spotted over Lake Huron by the U.S.-Canadian border on Sunday. President Biden ordering fighter jets to shoot it down. Correspondent Jagrudi Dave is live in Washington, D.C. now. And what do we know about this latest object shot down on Sunday?
Well, what we know is what we're hearing from the Pentagon, first of all, in a statement released on Sunday. They said at the direction of U.S. President Joe Biden and the recommendation of Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, F-16s shot down what is they're describing as an unidentified object over Lake Huron. They said that the location of the shooting down was chosen based on the impact on people on the ground, but also the ease with which that they could locate the debris. We're hearing reports that it was an octagonal shaped object with strings attached. The Pentagon is saying that it was connected, they believe, to a signal that they had picked up over Montana earlier on Sunday, that the object had flown close to Department of Defense sites, that it did not pose a kinetic military threat, they said, but it did pose a threat to civil aviation, they believe, which was one of the reasons why they had downed it. Not very much is known. They say that there was also the threat that it could have potential surveillance capabilities. The Air Force General Glen VanHerck also gave a briefing to reporters, and he said that there's a reason why they're calling it objects, not balloons, that they just don't know enough about what this object is. And so the recovery process of the debris is now underway to find out exactly what this object is.
President Biden has yet to comment on the three most recent objects shot down. But Javrudi, what have we heard from lawmakers about these incidents and national security concerns?
Yeah, I think ever since that first object was spotted over the United States on January the 28th, which the U.S. then alleged was a Chinese surveillance balloon, which China has rejected those accusations, the U.S. has really been on high alert, looking to the skies to try and spot any more potential surveillance devices that have been flying through U.S. airspace. And so, these last few objects, as I say, they are unidentified. Officials are not yet clear on what exactly they are. Senator Chuck Schumer on Sunday told ABC News that the objects that were shot down over Alaska on Friday and over Canada on Saturday were both balloons. This was following a briefing with White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. He said that they were smaller than that initial object. The White House later said that they did not closely resemble that original balloon. But I think officials are, as I say, in Canada, are searching for that debris over for the objects, both the shot down over Lake Huron, but also over Yukon on Saturday. They really want to know what those objects are. The Air Force General giving the briefing on Sunday night was also asked about the potential of UFO, unidentified flying objects, and he was saying that he potentially was not ruling anything out. It was just not clear what these objects are. Lawmakers have been criticizing the Biden administration pretty heavily since that first balloon for they're saying that he took too long to shoot that first one down. And so I think the administration has really been on high alert. Congress is saying they want more information, but of course, officials saying we just don't know enough about these objects. We're trying to get as much information out as possible. Again, criticism that the administration was too slow to offer that information. But, there's also questions about whether more objects are being detected because the administration are just looking for more things in the skies, or whether this is just a case of more and more objects are just being spotted in airspace. So I think we're at the moment waiting to see what those recovery efforts unearth.
All right, D.C. correspondent Jagrudi Dave live on the latest foreign object shot down by the U.S. military. Thank you so much. All right, Keith Mahoney is a former intelligence officer with NCIS and a geopolitical consultant working in defense and security. He joins us now to provide a little bit more context in what's happening in our country's skies. Thank you so much for being here with us on this Monday morning. So it started with the spy balloon sailing across the country for the better part of a week. That was shot down, and now in just as many days, 3 objects were shot down. What exactly changed? Is it just the monitoring of this has led us to find more of these objects, or are there actually more flying across the U.S.?
Awareness. Awareness is 100% the key. We are paying closer attention to these objects than ever before. They have been floating around in our atmosphere. They have been floating around all over the world. We're just paying keen attention to them now. The first balloon, obviously, was of a little greater interest. We allowed that balloon to traverse the United States. We surveilled it. We paid close attention to how it may have been communicating and what it was looking at. Any communications it may have had directly with China, we were blocking that with another aircraft above it. These last few objects, on the other hand, can be a number of different things. I reached out to the White House yesterday. I reached out to the Department of Defense yesterday. Neither are saying anything. They're keeping it closed-lipped somewhat. I'm thinking that the devices, which are all of different shapes, by the way, and they were shot down at different altitudes, that means something. Wind, speed, direction, it changes by altitude. So these devices could be possibly used for NBC purposes, and NBC is nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare purposes. It would be quite scary if an adversarial nation detonated a dirty bomb, let's say, not a direct attack on the United States, but a dirty bomb in the upper atmosphere. The radioactive materials would float around in the prevailing winds, not just around the United States, but all over the globe. So these could be testing probes to see how the wind directions are changing. They could be related to climate change. There could be some investigations being conducted. But that's probably the most least likely of the scenarios. If these belong to a research institution, they would have already publicly identified the objects as theirs. So very likely they have military implications.
Now, Keith, Representative Mike Turner from Ohio expressed concerns about our security systems yesterday. Let's listen to what he had to say.
There's going to be a number of questions to answer here. The big point is that this is time for the United States to take this as a turning point to invest. We need more sophisticated radar systems. We have them. We just don't have them deployed to protect continental United States. An integrated missile defense system. We've helped invest in Israel having an integrated missile defense system. We don't have one ourselves. This is a turning point where we need to discuss this is a threat and how do we respond to it.
So what is the state of our radar systems right now? How effective are they?
Guys, we started talking about Star Wars in the Reagan administration. We have effective radar systems in place, and we can track and discover objects in the sky quite early in their process of traversing the United States.
So I'm about to cue the X-Files theme music for this next question for you, Keith. The commander of NORAD yesterday said he wasn't ruling out any sources for the objects, including from outer space. You know, some people may want this to be the truth. The truth is out there. They say, what is the possibility that there are objects from outer space out there or from different sources that you may not guess?
Every one of us would love for this to be an object from outer space. It would be the greatest story in the history of mankind. We would all follow this. You think we have a good story with balloons for a week? We would talk about this forever. No, it's not from outer space. I love that the general said that. There's going to be a fairly common explanation using math, using physics, some interdisciplinary studies with meteorology. There's going to be a very simple explanation for this. Let's just see when our Department of Defense and our White House wants to tell us exactly what they found and why we spent $500,000 on each missile that we shot to bring these things down. We're spending a lot of money bringing them down. There's got to be a reason behind this, but they're not saying a word yet.
Keith Mahoney, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.